I think we have to dispel a fantasy. If you're in the job that you love, you'll never work a day again.
Yeah.
That is a lie. Yes, you will.
Stop saying that.
You're listening to Men of Faith, the podcast dedicated to calling men up and not out. Join me as we live a life dedicated to our God. What's up, and welcome back to the Men of Faith podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Cole, and we are here in season 2 kickoff. I'm here with my co-host, Brandon Miller. Brandon, we're back, and we're better than ever.
Here we go. Back and we're live in studio this season.
This is our first time together, so who knows what's going to happen. I mean, Brandon and I have been doing these. You all have seen them, or if you were just listening, you haven't seen it. But if you ever watched the video, well, we were virtual, connected to each other. But now we're in the room.
In the room. Here
I can touch you, bro.
Here we go. We can fist bump.
Let's go. So, hey, it is our season 2 kickoff. And we're just really excited for this new look. We kind of prepped it and promoted it last time that things were going to look a little different. We're going to start being in person, different vibe to it. And I think we're going to hit some amazing new topics in this season. And so going back to the last season, Brandon, you know, we got tons of great feedback. And again, I want to encourage you guys, if this speaks to you, please share it. You can share it on your social media. Definitely follow us at Men of Faith Pod on Instagram, where we update you when new episodes come out, clips, whatnot. And then, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you're watching this on right now, potentially. But Brandon, you know, looking back, I got so much great feedback and guys talking to me about how much they were getting out of it. And so for you, you know, one season in, what are you excited about for this next season?
You know, I think we're going to dive deeper into some of the topics we covered last season based on your feedback. I'm looking forward to the third guest when it's time to bring them into studio and a chance to have those conversations, go a little deeper into topics, but just really provide the guys with, you know, further instruction through the call-ups that we're going to come together with this season.
Yeah, it was cool. I may have mentioned this last time, but how many wives were telling me they were listening and they were like, man, I'm listening.
Is that fair? Like, is it fair that they're getting in on this side?
I don't know. And so for the wives that are listening, what's up? Welcome to the Men of Faith podcast.
Welcome. You're welcome here.
But I had multiple wives telling me like, man, I've been listening to your podcast and I'm getting a lot out of it. Or he was listening to it in front of me and I loved it. And so some of it, though, I told my buddy, I was like, hey, you may not want to listen to it in front of her because we're giving you call-ups, but we're also giving you real challenges to make changes. And, you know, our wives are hearing this if they're listening. My wife doesn't listen, though.
So maybe we tell the MOFs, you might want to listen to the sisterhood. Just so you know the other side.
You can hold them accountable.
That's
too.
right. That's right.
No, that's a good reminder to tell your wives or women in your life, there is a sisterhood podcast as well. And my wife runs that with some of the team here at our church. And so, yeah, I'd encourage you to check that out. But so to the wives that are listening, what's up? Brandon and I are excited you're listening. But today we did want to talk a little bit about what's coming, but also want to talk somewhat about balance. So one of the main topics we want to hit today is this idea of work, life, and family balance. I actually have a lot of conversations, coffee, you know, connections with guys. And this is one of the things that I think is constantly brought up to me is, Caleb, how do I balance all of this? You know, I got kids, they've got sports, we've got church, we've got my job. And typically our jobs are most demanding. I just read this stat when we're between the ages of 35 and 50. Because that's when you're kind of moving up, you know, corporately, you're leveling up.
Someone forgot to tell my job that.
Yeah, okay.
Because I'm turning 50.
But I mean, it's the most demanding, they say, in that season.
Right, for sure.
Because you're pushing, you're driving because you want to get ahead, right? You want to get to the top of the ladder. You're already at the top of the ladder. I know you still push hard, Brandon, but ultimately that window is when guys have the hardest time
for sure
of balancing work with family, life, and everything else in between?
Interestingly enough, because my business, we do coaching.
Okay,
This is almost always going to come up
yeah.
when we're coaching, is how do you integrate seasons of work that are especially intense? And when you know you're going to pull the thread on family, because family is going to take it while that's happening, or when both of those are heavy, and health and fitness and just time to make sure your own well-being is in place, and knowing the seasonality of how that works is constantly a topic that busy professionals, emerging people in the workforce, they're faced with. How do I settle this? How do I move into a healthy life rhythm?
Yeah. So basically, you're the best person we could have on this podcast on this topic, because you actually coach on it. So, I mean, I'd like to hear your perspective. So when it comes to this, and obviously we're coming at it today from a faith perspective, and I know maybe some of what you coach them isn't necessarily you're integrating the faith side, but I know that everything you do is through the lens of faith.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the practical things you're helping coach these guys on when it comes to, all right, there's a tension happening right now. You have to put more in that work in this season. And I have seasons of that.
Sure.
And so how do you coach them in balance? I mean, we've talked a little bit about this, that balance is somewhat of a myth, because it's impossible, right? We're never going to have everything in balance.
No.
But we try to juggle, keep all the balls in the air, so to say. Or I like that analogy of the spinning plates. And when one plate starts wobbling, you got to go give it more attention.
Right.
And then you see another one wobbling, you go give that one more attention. And so you're constantly doing the balancing act of giving more attention or energy to what is maybe lacking in that moment or season. So what are some of the practical things, coaching wise?
I think starting out, there was a speaker that I heard once in the context of a CEO group I am a part of, and he talked about replenishment rhythms. And replenishment meaning wherever it is that you're spending the energy, the resource that you're required of. And obviously work is going to be a big part of that for the men that are listening. And hopefully that's a good thing. You're in a good position and you're doing work that fuels your family, fuels your soul, gives you good insight. But then how are you then in recovery? What does that look like for you? Because if as an individual, you're not thinking about your time with God as a source of recovery and replenishment, your time with your spouse, if that's applicable, your time with your family, your own rest time. And so actually establishing that on the front end is a really important part of integrating life. Because if I'm not attending to a morning ritual, a morning routine where I'm awake, maybe I'm exercising, maybe some of our guys are cold plungers or cold shower guys or saunas or workouts or time with God, whatever that looks like, establishing that rhythm. And then where does rest come in? Where do I actually take the time for recovery? When do I pull away for retreat? When do I do that? So I was really challenged by that kind of thinking, because I think for most of us, and we've talked about this on past episodes, we don't lead with the reality that we're going to spend it and need to refresh it, because the spending part is a given, but the refreshing part is something that is a good place to begin, because as men of faith, our rest is in God, but God didn't promise us that work would be easy.
No,
he actually said the contrary. You're going to sweat, you're going to toil, you're going to labor. And by necessity, that tension between work and family and our own well-being, our own situation, that has to exist, but it does exist in a place where we can get in front of it.
Well, I do want to say this, like, we were made to work. God said, work the garden, keep it, tend it, So the reality of a generation, I do think that's younger even than maybe some of our listeners, but I do think there's a generation right now that does not understand the value of work and does not realize the purpose that's found in work, and that as men, we do find purpose in our work, and that's God-given. It's not wrong. Like, God created us to want to work, to need to work, and we're being obedient in our work. So I think
I want to add on that comment, because if you're taking rest from not enough work, you're actually compromising yourself.
Yes.
Because you're overindulging rest. And that's actually not good for us. That leads to purposelessness. That leads to a feeling of stagnation. Where am I going? What am I doing? And once that starts to pull back on us, where we feel like I'm spinning my wheels, I'm not getting anywhere, then work has a need to increase in life.
Yeah.
We actually do want to engage further in that activity.
Yeah, I think I wanted to start there because I do know we do have some younger guys listening. And I think it's an issue with this younger generation, the value of and valuing hard work in their life. And so I do think there's overindulgence in, I don't even want to say it is rest, but it's entertainment. I mean, look at our world right now, right?
Yeah.
It's like everyone has 72 streaming services, and we're just binging, show after show and entertainment after entertainment, sport after sport that we're watching. And then we wonder why we do maybe feel purposeless, because work is a huge part of it. So I do think there may be some guys listening that need to be challenged and called up to work harder right now. I think the majority of us probably that are listening need to be challenged in balance, because like me, I don't have a problem working. I have a problem working too much and knowing when to slow down, rest, replenishment. And so I love what you said. And now shifting to that replenishment focus again is, for me, like, my routines are everything for replenishing me. And I was actually annoyed this morning because I did the Bible, I'm on my Bible reading in a year. And this year I determined I'm not going to do anything in the morning before I spend time with the Lord.
That's good.
And in the past, I've been guilty of going to social media for a little bit, the news for a little bit.
Email.
Whatever. Or even I would go to the gym sometimes early. And I felt like the Lord was like, you need to start with me. And so I started this morning. The reason I said I was annoyed because you were the first comment on our Bible reading plan of the year, and you're like 5 days ahead. I'm like, Brandon, you posted this 5 days ago. Today is, anyways, it's fine. You're an overachiever, but props to you. But I read today's reading, and I started my day that way, and I'm like, God, I'm going to do that this year. 2025 is going to be a year of me prioritizing you. And if I need to go to the gym in the morning, then I got to get up earlier to spend time with you, and then go. I usually go in the afternoon, but I think that the rhythms of routine of replenishment for me has been huge for me feeling balanced as I then go work hard during the week. And as I go, grind at, well, for me, it's here at the church, and certain seasons are busier than others too. And we can talk about that as well. But I love what you said, because I've felt so replenished by staying in my routines of self-care, of connection with the Lord, of exercise, of all these things that then make life better. And I feel more energized when I'm working, so that when I come home, I have more energy for my family.
That's right. I think if we recognize the way that each of us live in our synchronicity with work and with relationships, and of course, prioritizing our relationship with God, there is, for a man of faith, once we lose that priority, once that decreases in our life, everything will become unbalanced, because God, in my opinion, makes sure it does. God has a way of getting our attention in such a way that he's going to force us back, if you will, because he loves us and he disciplines those he loves. And he's going to force us back to exactly what you're saying. Where am I on your depth chart?
Yeah.
Am I first? Because if I'm not, then you're guilty of violating command number 1. I'm the Lord your God. You'll have no other God besides me. And he'll keep reestablishing that. So as a man of faith, I think our first priority for any attempt at balance is, all right, God, where do you fit in my schedule? How do I blank schedule it? Where do you fit? Where do you want to be? And how does that look? So you talk about the Bible app. One of the ways that I do Bible is I like to do Bible while I work out.
Yeah.
And I happen to enjoy working out on a machine that lets me listen and respond while I do that. So in a 30-minute workout, I can knock out 2, 3, 4 Bible studies. And then if I have other Bible studies, I could do those at other times or other reading, whatever that is. But it's how I have learned to prioritize that part of my study, my time with God. So I think for each of us, one of our call-ups, I think, can be today, how are you prioritizing God in your schedule before you establish work and family and entertainment? Because I wanted to make mention about the comment that we can get caught in these loops where a streaming service and binge watching a series or getting caught into a game or athletics. Many of us are very into our team and it's playoff time and we can get caught. A healthy evaluation is, do those actually replenish us?
Yeah.
It's a key. Like, am I actually getting off the couch feeling like, hey, I rested there, or did I really just watch some ball games and cheer on my team? And that's a really healthy evaluation of when am I actually in that place and space where I'm at my best, and when am I really just spilling my water on the streets? I'm not really getting value here.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could talk about sports or even video games, because I think a lot of guys are playing video games now, and how often those teams or that game can actually change our mood and our energy towards the people that we love and should be treating well and interacting, connecting with, but our team loses and now we're in a bad mood the rest of the day. We won't talk to anyone. Like, I think there's some idolatry there, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've had to make some changes in my own heart and life when it came to my sports teams, because I'll be in a mood, but I always am like, all right, Lord, like, I don't want this to impact how I treat anyone around me, my children, my family. And if it is, then I may need to remove this idol from my life, because if it's dictating my emotion, then it's probably not the healthiest relationship. And when you have teams like the Kings, you know, Sacramento Kings, I'm
on a streak right now,
diehard fan. But I'm saying it's a toxic relationship.
That's right.
They lose 6 straight, and then they win 7
and they
straight.
bring you up to the peak. Yes.
So, you know, my emotions can go with that. So I've had to really step back at times and say, hey, is this an idol in my life? I may need to back off a little bit. I may need to change something in how I'm approaching this. And I'm thankful that God has shown me that. But on the idea of balance, I think within work life, we sometimes are just waiting for the moments of rest. And so here's what I see a lot with guys. It's like, I'm just got to make it through this week, so then Saturday, Sunday, I can finally like enjoy my life and relax and rest.
Yep.
And that's where I think, coming back to the replenishment rhythms, you have to have it in every day.
That's right.
Because otherwise you will get to the weekend and have nothing left, because you're so spent from a week of work and grind. But if there's replenishment in your week, then you get to the weekend, you have energy to enjoy the people around you, your family, your connections, relationships. But I think too many men are just expending everything during the week with nothing replenishing them. And then they get to the weekend and they think, oh, I made it, but they have nothing for anyone else. And so it's honestly a couple days of recovery, so then they can try to do it again the next week. And that's not how I think God wants us to live.
No, and I think you're right, because if I'm not taking the time to quiet myself, figure out what I'm listening to or paying attention to, I'll speak to my own replenishment. If there is not a cycle at some point in my day where I'm breathing, focused on a scripture, thinking about a problem, but I'm doing it in a quiet space, I've set the phone down, I'm not listening to whatever notifications coming, then, as you said, I will feel that level of being spent. And one of the ways I think we know we've gone too far is that for the first time ever, the CDC is actually calling burnout a condition. Like, when we've actually spent ourselves so much. And often the burnout isn't just because we overworked, it's because we didn't replenish while we worked. And we weren't paying attention to the sources of how we perceive replenishment versus it's fun. It's fulfillment of some kind, but it's not actually bringing me ideal health. It's not bringing me to a place where I have energy. It's not bringing me to a place where I'm in healthy relationship. And one of the key indicators is to pay attention to how healthy are the relationships in my life. Yeah. Because that's going to say a lot about, am I in God's balance? Am I in the right space and place for my life?
Yeah, relationships are key, right? Like, if we don't have healthy relationships around us and we're not investing properly into those relationships, because we could have a spouse that's healthy, but if we're not investing into it, if we're not prioritizing connection,
that's right,
emotionally, if we're not, actually scheduling date nights,
Right.
if we're not getting away from the kids and being alone together, like that healthy person and me, who's maybe a healthy person, there's a disconnection. And no matter how healthy two people are, if we're not connected,
Yep.
it's an unhealthy relationship.
And you bring up a great point, because if we're married and the relationship with our spouse is meant to fill us
Yeah.
and to be filled,
Yeah.
meaning sometimes I need to take the posture where I'm giving to her to fill her. And sometimes I need her to fill me back. And those are going to look different depending on who we are. And
Yeah.
it's the same with our kids, our friends, our mentors. Every relationship is actually meant to be a give take. We're in a service position, or we're in a I need to receive position. And some of that, is time and pressure. How does this work in the reality of the season of life I'm in? Because for those of us that have teenagers, they do a lot of taking.
Yeah.
And you're teaching them to do giving, but they're in a season where a lot is happening. They're moving through puberty, they're moving through life, and there's a lot of pour out that's going to happen in that time, right? I mean, you're doing that yourself.
Yep.
But learning how, all right, I can't ignore this. I can't ignore this season this person is in where they need some intensive support as compared to where I'm going to need to give, my attention back.
That's so good. I was thinking about work as you were talking before, and the idea of finding purpose in it. So I don't know if you guys do any coaching around this, but I'm just curious your thoughts, because one of the conversations I have with a lot of guys, which I think affects their work-life home balance, is they just don't feel any fulfillment in the job they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a lot of guys listening right now, or some that maybe are in a job where it's just like, it's not fulfilling. I don't feel purpose in it. So what would you say to them? They're in a job that, whether it's dead-end job, great job, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, they feel like there's no fulfillment, no purpose in it.
Yeah. So first of all, I think we have to understand that there is no job that doesn't involve work. It's called work for
That's
a reason.
true.
It's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
It's meant to require toil, labor, sacrifice. You are in your dream job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a vision. You went to school for this.
You're talking
You
about
had-
me, yes.
Yes. You specifically had a calling, right?
Yes.
And there are
sometimes
days-
it sucks.
That's right. You are in the job you were made for, and there are days where you're like, Caleb, get out of bed.
Yeah, exactly.
And get your rear end in there, because this is your job. Go
100%.
to work. And then there's days where I'm in my perfect place. I'm
Yeah.
energized
This
by
is
this.
amazing.
It's fueling me. And so statistically speaking, about 30% of your time at work, if you feel fulfilled, if you feel like I'm doing what I do the very best, I'm energized, I'm uplifted, I'm motivated, that's good enough.
30%.
30%. If a third
Wow.
of your work fuels you that way, you're in a good situation. 70% of it,
You're working.
it's why it's called work. I'm literally doing
Yeah.
what I believe I'm made for. And there are plenty of weeks, it's 70, 80, 90% of it feels like hard work. And then
Yeah.
there's those seasons where it's 30, 40, 50, where I'm like, this is perfect. And
Yeah.
so I think we have to dispel a fantasy. You've ever heard
good.
that adage, if you're in the job that you love, you'll never work a day again.
Yeah.
That is a lie. Yes, you will.
Stop saying that.
Yeah, you will for sure be working. However, with that also the understanding that there is a way to know if you're in the right job. There is
Yeah.
a way to know, hey, am I just collecting a paycheck, or am I in the space that I'm made for? And it's a good question, and probably a great follow-up episode, because knowing that as far as work and where I'm going to labor and toil, that's a huge benefit to understand for ourselves. But we should go ahead and eliminate that lie right now. Work
The
is work
misnomer.
for a reason.
Well, I love that. I love that you even brought, from your coaching some real statistics to it, because I think that maybe does lift the burden off of some of the guys that are like, but I see all these people thriving and they love everything they do. And it's like, no, I don't think anyone lives that life. And if they are saying they do, they're lying. And I'm here to say I'm in my dream job. And yeah, I could actually probably say that statistic's pretty accurate for me,
Yeah, well, think about this. You could be in your dream job, and you know what you're going to be guaranteed of? People problems.
Yes.
You're never going to escape people problems, because people are messy. and they're hard and it's challenging and they never do what you think they're going to do.
Yeah.
And so whatever role you have to deal with humans. Even AI is going to present challenges that people still have to recover from. And so given that space, coming back to that idea of replenishment, if you can identify in life, literally, how to get into that rhythm, it has a tremendous impact upon what we're describing today as balance, being really in a space and place where you're feeling your equilibrium steady. You feel strong. You feel like, hey, I have reserves. I can handle tough things when they happen.
And can I just say this too? I think we have to also shift our perspective that any work we do, if we do it unto the Lord, then it should have purpose.
That's right.
Right? Even the stuff we don't like doing, which is a big chunk of what we do in any job, whether it's our dream job or not, is like, I'm not doing this for me. And I think so often it's all about us, especially in this culture, individualistic culture, self-fulfillment, everything's about that. And ultimately, like, everything I do, as scripture tells us, like, do unto the Lord.
Amen.
And so if I'm doing my job, even the parts of it I don't like, unto the Lord, then it should have purpose, because I'm honoring you with this work. And if I'm honoring God with this work, I'm going to do my best.
That's right.
And so that would be my encouragement, because a lot of guys probably are in jobs they don't love or maybe feel stuck, that you just shift your mindset and say, you know what? This is the job that's been provided to me. I can pray for another one and one that fits me better. But in the meantime, I'm here. God's placed me here. I'm here for this season. I'm providing for my family, whatever.
That's right.
I'm going to do this unto the Lord, which means I'm going to be the best employee I can be. I'm going to work the hardest I can work. I'm going to bring my best every single day, and I'm doing it for Him. And I think if we have that mindset, then it may shift in us a level of purpose that we maybe have been lacking.
Yeah, I'm gonna build on that just for the sake of understanding. My first job out of high school, because I got married so young, is I worked in a production bakery, midnight to 8 a.m, cleaning up after a bunch of people. That was my whole job.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and there was a part of that job where somebody had to take these muffin wrappers and fill these muffin plates with like little individual wrappers that you eat your muffin out of, right? Okay. I happen to be really good at it. I don't know why, but I could put 2 of those in my hands and I could fill those pans like nothing. Everybody would just stand back and marvel. And I remember vividly this many years later that I loved that part of that job. Most of the job I didn't like, but when I walked out of work feeling like I did a good job filling those muffin pans, I did the job better than anybody, that I had a sense of satisfaction that I did a good job. And whatever job you're in, when you derive from work that I have been made by God to do work, and if I do it unto Him, as you just said, it could be filling a muffin pan, it could be leading someone to the Lord, or solving a big problem, or for me, winning a big deal, or solving a client issue. It all equates to, am I doing it unto Him? And am in that space, am I leaving work feeling like I got energy for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Or am I leaving work feeling I'm completely depleted and now I have to be filled up because I got nothing to give?
Yeah, I think that's so good when I have had those same conversations with like young people that work under me. And we could talk about people problems. Like I have younger employees.
Talk about people problems.
Yeah, we could. But I have younger employees, and one of the things I've tried to instill to them is, there's been through the years they've come to me like, I don't really like doing this part of my job. And I've tried to instill to them like, yeah, I don't like doing a lot of my job, but that's part of it. And we do the parts we don't like, so we get to do the parts that we do like.
That's right.
No job, like you said, all of it we love. There's some things that like, I just kind of got to do this.
That's
and
right.
But the mindset I always had was, but I'm doing this for God.
That's right.
I'm doing it unto Him. I'm going to bring my best. And so even the parts that I don't love, that it allows me to do the parts that I do. And I think we miss that. And we think every part we need to love. And that's just not the reality. And so I'm so glad that you shared that today. And so I think we need to follow up to this episode to talk a little bit more about purpose and work and just balance in general. Yeah. But I think the call up, for me today is to encourage you all to just, whatever job you have, to do it unto the Lord.
Amen.
What call up you got for them today?
Yeah, I think about, for each of us, how are you being replenished? Where is that coming from? Are you prioritizing the way Caleb described? He's starting each day with his focus on God. That's a replenishment rhythm. Are you getting that from him? Because the one source that will always give and not take is God.
Yeah.
The one that he will always give. He's always going to fill you. He wants from you, but he's going to fill you and give you what you need. And that's my call up is start to look at first things first, where are you putting him and how are you being replenished throughout your week or your month?
So good. So, hey, thanks for joining us for the Men of Faith podcast. Season 2 has kicked off. We got new episodes coming with guests. Brandon and I are excited to be interviewing, talking to some different people that I think you're going to get so much value from. So thanks again for joining us for the Men of Faith podcast. We love y'all. Grace and peace.
Peace.